During this Ramadan, and now even when lockdown is ending, here in Trinidad, the announcement has just been made that next Jummah, the lockdown will end, so we'll be able to have Salatul Jummah in Trinidad and perhaps also in other parts of the world. Excuse me. Which makes it necessary for me to explain the difference between a valid salat and a bogus salat. For those of you who consider me to be rightly guided, it's very easy for you to understand, but for the cattle and the sheep, it's not possible. They will never understand. A valid salat is a salat which is performed in accordance with the law given to us by Allah and His Messenger. That religion must not be changed. No. And on Judgment Day, the followers of Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessings be upon him, will feel the heat of Judgment Day, and they'll have thirst. And he will be standing by Kawthar, a fountain of water. And he'll be giving us water as we come to him. And that water will quench our thirst on Judgment Day. But there'll be some who will come to him for water and he'll refuse to give them water. And in another hadith, it is Allah who says, don't give them any water. And they will ask, O Messenger of Allah, but we are your followers. Why aren't you giving us water? And he say, you changed the religion after I left. So this is the way of salat that he has given to us. Do not commit bid'ah to change the way of salat. If the way of salat cannot be performed in accordance with the law and the religion, what do? Do we change the law or do we suspend the salat? My students will understand very easily that we will suspend the salat so that on Judgment Day we will get water. They who want to change the salat because the Minister of Health says, no, you have to stand 3 feet apart from each other. So these sheep and these cattle will stand in the masjid 3 feet apart from each other, and they will call that Salatul Jummah. And they will call that Salatul Eid. And some of the sheep and the cattle will perform the Salatul Eid in their sitting room. And on Judgment Day, no water for them unless they make tawbah. That's right, no water for you on Judgment Day. You change the religion. We will not change the religion, we suspend the salat, as I did. I had no Salatul Eid this year because I would not perform Salatul Eid in my sitting room. And I will never, inshallah, ever stand for salat 3 feet apart from each other for a salat bil jama'ah. I'll never do that. I will not betray the religion that our Prophet left for us. So this is what has happened during Ramadan. And now that the lockdown is ending, they're going to tell us you could perform your Salatul Jummah, but you must stand 3 feet apart from each other. And all the sheep and all the cattle will do that. But you and I, who want to remain faithful to Nabi Muhammad ﷺ and faithful to the religion, we prefer to flee with our religion, flee to the mountainsides and to places where rain falls and take with us some sheep and goats, but we will not change the religion because Tom, Dick and Harry tell us to do it. Now, this then is the announcement that I wanted to give to you today. The lockdown, while we're waiting for your calls, maybe you're still sleeping, while we're waiting for your calls, the lockdown is now ending. The lockdown is now ending, but it's ending stage by stage. So the business places are reopening and so on. Travel is not yet, from Trinidad you still cannot travel. But from last Jummah, we were told that you could now perform your prayers in your masjid, in your mandir, in your church and so on. And the strange thing is that this was a test of Akhiru Zaman. We are being tested in Akhiru Zaman. And you know who is the mastermind who is testing us. The test is that you can now return and have your Salatul Jum'ah on the day of Jum'ah. But you cannot perform the Salatul Jum'ah in accordance with the Sunnah. You have to abandon the Sunnah. And you have to stand 3 feet apart. Now then, what do you do in a situation like this? The muftis and the maulanas and the shuyukh who are offering their opinion on this subject and are saying, yes, it's halal. Because this is a unique situation, it's an abnormal situation. Let me say to them, if they're listening to me, that this is called ijtihad, independent reasoning. And we are allowed ijtihad or independent reasoning when such a situation arises which is unique. And we do not have a precedent with which we can follow and respond to it. So when Mu'az ibn Jabal radiallahu ta'ala anhu was being sent to rule over Yemen, and the Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, asked, how will you rule? How will you judge? His answer was that I'll judge on the basis of the Book of Allah. And then the Prophet asked, and what about if the Book of Allah does not give you an answer? He says, I'll judge on the basis of the Sunnah of the Prophet. And then he said, if you do not find any answer in the Sunnah of the Prophet, what would you do? He said, then I will engage in independent reasoning. And so independent reasoning or ijtihad is permissible in a unique situation when there is no guidance from the Quran and from specific guidance from the Quran and from the Sunnah. So now what do we do? Here is a unique situation. We never had this before. This is the first time ever that we have a virus. We know it is manufactured in a laboratory. And because we believe it was manufactured in a laboratory, it is manufactured in different strains. You know, you'll choose the most virulent one, the most destructive and damaging and dangerous one, and you release that in Iran. They're not done with this as yet. This was just a trial run. This virus is going to reappear again and again in different parts of the world with different strains. They don't want Trump to remain as President of the United States. And there are sheep and cattle and goats out there who say, because Imran says this, he's a supporter of Trump, forget the sheep and the cattle. They're worthless. So they don't want Trump as president. So you can imagine the drama that's going to unfold between now and November in the United States with the virus. So they said now, because of this virus, the Minister of Health said we must stand 3 feet apart. And therefore we cannot perform the salat in accordance with the Sunnah. And therefore we use our ijtihad, and the Mufti gives his fatwa. Fatwa means opinion. Fatwa is not law. Fatwa is not law. The Qadi gives the law. The Qadi applies the law, the judge. The Mufti is someone who gives a legal opinion. So fatwa is not law. Fatwa is a legal opinion. So the Mufti gives his fatwa, his legal opinion, yes, it is permissible. You can perform your salat standing 3 feet apart. No mufti, you're wrong. I'm sorry, mufti, you're wrong. And on Judgment Day, mufti, you'll regret what you've done. And those who follow the mufti with his fatwa will on Judgment Day regret what they did. No, it is only when there is no guidance in the Quran and in the Sunnah, then you can give your independent reasoning. But the guidance is there in the Sunnah, that this is the way salat must be performed. Shoulder to shoulder. Shoulder to shoulder, that's it. And if you are not allowed to perform the salat shoulder to shoulder, what do? Answer, you do not corrupt the salat. You do not enter into bid'ah, rather you suspend the salat. So what should we do now when the lockdown is ending and we are allowed to have our Salatul Jummah? My answer to you, my guidance to you at the age of 80, look for a masjid, look for an imam who has a backbone, who performs this. He will not lead the salat unless you're standing shoulder to shoulder. And go and perform your Salatul Jummah in that masjid. And if the sheep and the cattle and the goats and the camels, if they want to perform their salat standing 3 feet apart, it doesn't surprise us. The sheep and the cattle will do all. Whatever they ask to be done, the sheep and the cattle will do it. Our Prophet warned us about those sheep and cattle. He warned us. He said the time will come when you, this ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu, you will follow them to such an extent that even if they were to go down into a lizard's hole, you'll follow them into the lizard's hole. If they would commit sexual intercourse with their own mother, you will do the same thing. So they asked, O Messenger of Allah, will we do this when we have the Quran with us? And he said, who are you talking about? Are you talking about the Jews and the Christians? He said, who else? He said, they have the book, they have the scripture with us, and yet look at what they're doing. He's not talking about all Jews. He's not talking about all Christians. He's talking about those Jews and those Christians who join in a Judeo-Christian alliance. And instead of following Jesus and following the Messiah, they follow Santa Claus. And a man can marry another man and get a marriage certificate. This is what he's warning about. And so do not follow them into the lizard's hole. No. You and I have some sense, we have the capacity to think. And so my guidance to you, if you consider me to be a teacher, my guidance to you is don't follow the sheep and the cattle. The sheep and the cattle don't think. No, they want to be politically correct. Yes, they want to act in a manner which conforms with the political directives. So they will do whatever they have to do, even if you have to go down into a lizard's hole. I am so sad that I have to speak like this, yes. But what can I do? I live a stone's throw from them. They will never come to me and seek any guidance from me, no. It will affect their credentials if they stay too close to me, So let them pray as they want. But you and I will not join in a salat, which is a violation of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, with standing 3 feet apart. No, we prefer to stay home and perform Salatul Zuhr rather than go to the masjid and perform a bogus Salatul Jummah. And so this is my guidance to you on this day. It seems as though everybody is sleeping this morning. We're not getting any calls as yet. Oh, there's a caller. Okay. Hello?
Hello? Yes?
Yes?
Hello. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam. Where are you
In
calling?
connection with the Salah, you're talking about praying 3 feet apart.
1 second. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Las Lomas area.
From where?
Las Lomas area. Las Lomas.
Las
Airport.
Lomas. Oh, he's calling from Trinidad. Okay, yes, go
Trinidad,
ahead.
yes.
Las Lomas is a French word, yeah.
Yes,
Sorry,
yes.
not French, Spanish. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to know this 3 feet apart, if it ever happened before in unit time of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam or the Sahabas. Because these scholars, well, the six scholars gave the opinion, and they said it happened, I think, before. So I don't know where if it happened or where it happened.
This
I
is
don't know if you could enlighten us on that, because it has been done all over, I mean, in not only Trinidad, even abroad, they're doing this standing apart. And we know that we're supposed to stand up close, and the male supposed to do it in the masjid, the first salah, you know, you're supposed to stand up close and leave no space. So could you say if it happened before? That is what I want to know. They just say to do it and it's allowed. But I never hear they explain when it happened or if it ever happened before.
This is a pathetic fishing expedition to find some straw on which to hold on to in order to be able to give this bogus fatwa. The virus is a bogus virus. We have been here in Trinidad for so long now, 2 months of this virus, 3 months. How many people have died from this virus? Huh? How many do you know in your hometown who've been affected by the virus? Our Prophet said, if you are in a place where the virus has come, the plague has come, he says, do not leave. He never said, stop performing Salatul Jummah. He said, do not leave. He never said, stop performing your Salatul Eid. He said, do not leave. That's what he said. And he said, if you're outside, do not enter. Why? Because in this way, you can contain the virus. And so where is the justification for bid'ah? That you have a virus now, what they used to call plague, and you go fishing on an expedition for some hadith somewhere, long time ago that you could hold on to. This is pathetic. Nobody is getting any virus when you go in the masjid to perform salat. Can't you think? It is rather you are being tested. It is Akhiru Zaman. And you know who is the mastermind who is testing you in Akhiru Zaman? It is Dajjal. He is demonstrating his capacity to rule the world. So if you want to follow that bogus fatwa, I'm sorry to have to speak like this, because these are my brothers who give the fatwa. If you want to follow that fatwa and perform your salat like monkeys, standing 3 feet apart, in manifest violation of the sunnah, remember you will answer for it on Judgment Day. This is not independent reasoning. This is not ijtihad. The sunnah is very plain and clear. The sunnah is you must stand shoulder to shoulder, okay? Any more questions? Any more calls? My opinion, which I've already expressed earlier, is that sovereignty over the masjid, the house of Allah, is not in the hands of any government. Let me repeat that statement so that governments may care what I'm saying. Sovereignty over the house of Allah does not reside with any government, with any prime minister, with any president, or any armed forces. Sovereignty over the house of Allah resides with Allah. And therefore it is those who are teaching the deen, those who are appointed by the people to represent them in the deen. These are the ones who must be consulted if you want to shut down the masjid. Can the masjid be shut down? Yes, if conditions of grave insecurity exist, then you can suspend the Salatul Jummah. Nobody differs with that. When conditions of grave insecurity exist, there is no Salatul Jummah. And this is why for how many years in Makkah we never had any Salatul Jummah. But who decides? It is we who decide, not the government. We decide. When you have the Khilafah state, yes, the Khilafah state will decide. But when we have these nation states, do they represent us? No, they don't represent us. So therefore, what do we do for Salatul Taraweeh? What do we do during the month of Ramadan? This is my view. If you cannot perform the Salat in the masjid in accordance with the law, don't change the law. Suspend the Salat, but do not change the law. Do not commit bid'ah by bringing in new law. If there's something called, they have these strange terms that they create and concoct. They call it social distancing. Social distancing is something foreign to me. Yes, I don't have this concept of social distances. What they mean is keeping some space between each other. We'll find another term for it. Social distancing, and I have to use whatever term. When you want to call a homosexual gay, I have to use the term gay? No, I'm not prepared to follow that line. So if you're talking about keeping a space between people in Salat, my answer to you is the law does not accept that. The law does not permit that. The law requires us to stand shoulder to shoulder, and if you want to change the law, you will have to answer for that. I will not change the law. I could say, we will not perform the Salat, suspend the Salat, but not change the law. So it's going to be very funny, really, to see people standing in the masjid with a space of 1 yard or 2 yards in between each other in a line. It is very funny. And not only funny, it's stupid as well. I am not going to change the law. No, the law must be kept. If we cannot perform the Salat in accordance with the law, we will suspend the Salat until we can perform the Salat in accordance with the law. All right, so now we talked about those who should be sweating now because their conduct has not been righteous. You are preaching Islam, you are Maulana, you are Mufti, you are Sheikh, but you want to be politically correct. You want to have the freedom to travel. You don't want your name on any no-fly list. You don't want anybody to call you a terrorist. So you abandon Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. This is what Allah has ordained for all believers. This ummah is the last ummah, no more after this. This is the last one. And this ummah has been given a mission, and you know that. This is the mission of this ummah, that if it is right, if it is the truth, stand up for it regardless of the price you have to pay. And if it is false, if it is wrong, if it is a mountain of lies, stand up against it regardless of the price you have to pay. If it is munkar, the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, change it with your hand. And if you cannot, then change it with your tongue. And if you cannot, then change it with your heart, but that's the lowest. That's the weakest stage of faith. You have no right to be a leader and a guide and an imam. And so you're betraying the deen. Because you're afraid, you don't have a backbone. Your backbone is made of recycled paper. You want to be politically correct. Now you should be scared. What will Allah do with you? This is the hadith. يُوشِكُ أَن يَأْتِي عَلَى النَّاسِ zaman. It will not be long before that time will come. لَا يَبْقَى مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ الْأَسْمُ, when nothing will remain of Islam but the name. Hold on. Bismillah. This is a marathon session lasting 2 hours. This is the hadith of the Sunan of Bayhaqi, that nothing will remain of Islam but the name. When the world is riddled with riba, sucked with riba, immersed with riba, imprisoned by riba, and the scholars of Islam say nothing on the subject, what remains of Islam? When there is shirk in the political system, shirk in the economy, shirk everywhere, and you tell the people nothing, nothing, what remains of Islam? So when nothing remains of Islam but the name, that prophecy is there. وَلَا يَبْقَى مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ إِلَّا رَسْمُهُ, and nothing remains of the Qur'an except the traces of the writing. That's all, that's all. But no one goes to the Qur'an to study the Qur'an as it ought to be studied, to be able to locate in the Qur'an that which explains the reality of the world today, because they lack the methodology, and they lack the insight, and they lack the backbone. And when you try to teach them, you will never succeed in teaching them, not from now until the end of the world. مَسَاجِدُهُ مَامِرَةٌ وَهِيَ خَرَابٌ مِنَ الْهُدَى. At that time when nothing remains of Islam, you know it. Because at that time the masajid will be grand structures, iron and steel, multi-million-dollar buildings, but devoid of guidance. They can't even recognize the paper money as haram. And they're proud of what they built. Look at the big building, but devoid of guidance. And those who can teach are banned from coming. Those who can teach, you don't want them to come. مَسَاجِدُهُمْ عَامِرَةٌ وَهِيَ خَرَابٌ مِنَ الْهُدَى. And they're devoid of guidance. عُلَمَاؤُهُمْ شَرُّ النَّاسِ مِمَّنْ تَحْتَ عَدِيمِ السَّمَاءِ. The scholars of Islam at that time were the worst people beneath the sky. شَرُّ النَّاسِ مِمَّنْ تَحْتَ عَدِيمِ السَّمَاءِ. The worst people beneath the sky. مِنْ عِنْدِهِمْ تَخْرُجُ الْفِتْنَةُ وَفِيهِمْ تَعُودُ. They would become the centers of fitna, corrupting the people, leading them astray. And who are the worst people? إِنَّ شَرَّ الدَّوَابِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الصُّمُّ الْبُكْمُ الَّذِينَ هُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. The deaf and the blind who will not think. They will not think. Yes, do please bring some more water for me. Thank you.